Anybody have any question, any kind of question? Now, most people sitting 1 week, some people just came yesterday.
In one of Zen Master Sun Sun's letters, I saw he writes, do not give any rise to thought. Also, let your mind wander freely without any hindrance. And my question is, don't those two things kind of contradict each other? As in, don't any rise thought, but let your mind wander freely. And also, if you can maybe explain even more the second part, because cut through thinking we kind of know, but what does it mean to let your mind wander without hindrance, without falling into suffering or thinking too much?
In the Diamond Sutra, the line that Sixth Patriarch heard that gave him enlightenment was, don't attach to anything that arises in the mind. So both of those just point to that. Everybody's been sitting, so you know stuff just comes up. It's not necessary. All you have to do is sit here, be aware of your breath, look at the floor. Maybe you have some kind of mind practice, counting your breaths or chanting silently Kwansen Bosa or some mantra. That's all we need to do. We don't need to do anything else. But thinking appears. That's a habit. And it rarely has to do with the present moment. So that's already making something. But if you make, I have to cut my thinking, how can I cut my thinking? That's also making some more thinking. So in that sense, just let your mind go wherever it goes, just like the wind goes any place, but the sky doesn't change. So be like the sky, just aware of everything, but not attached to any of it. And we have to train ourselves to do that. Some thoughts come and go, no big deal. Others more strong. My roommate stayed in the bathroom so long this morning. Stuff appears. Or something even from nothing to happening in the retreat. Or one time I did a 49-day retreat by myself, very simple diet, same thing every day, brown rice, lentils, and I think I took peanuts and some raisins. I knew I wanted something sweet. And most of the time I was quite satisfied, but for no reason, pizza. Pizza kept coming. It's the only food that I thought of the whole time, but it was pizza, So it's not necessary. It's not going to help thinking that. It just appears because of some kind of habit, karmic habit. So if you fight with it, it's a problem. It gives it energy. If you don't attach to it, no problem. So letting your mind go any place is not attaching unless you follow your thinking. Yeah. So we can see when we sit or when we chant, we only have control of our attention so much, not 100%. So we're just strengthening that ability to direct our attention. And if you too strongly get this idea, I have to control my attention, that's also thinking. Actually, it can be quite amusing if you bring your energy down and your thinking just goes here and there. Sometimes you actually digest something that's been bothering you. But if you put energy into it, then it doesn't resolve on its own. If you leave it alone, it resolves on its own.
Can you explain bringing that energy down?
Hit your center. Well, already it's a little lower than before. Yeah. When you get angry, reflect back. Where am I feeling that? In Korea, at least, as I understand it, anger is called energy up. One time I asked Zen Master Sung-san, where's anger come from? He said, checking mind. Where's checking mind come from? Not believe in yourself, your true self. So, anger is some situation and my opinion don't match. Then I get angry. So, if you keep your energy up here, lots of desires, thinking, angry mind, and suffering. If you keep too much energy here, then too much emotion. And the thinking that comes from being too emotional is opposite, I like this, I don't like this, becomes very strong. This is good, this is bad, this person's good, this person's bad. Then that will always create suffering in the end. Inside ourselves, and definitely when we involve with others. So when you breathe in, let your lower belly below your navel relax. Let it kind of come out a little bit. When you breathe out, a little bit pull your lower belly in. You can also put your finger about 2 centimeters below your navel. And as you breathe out, push a little bit. And then just put your attention there. And then breathe in. Just relax here, let it come out. Feels almost like the air is going all the way down. And then breathe out, pull your belly in. And you can feel the air go out and go in, but your attention is down in what Koreans call the tanjun, Chinese dantian, energy garden, okay? So if you, when babies breathe, they breathe 100%, but we quickly start making habits as we start thinking of breathing higher and higher in our chest, which only creates more thinking. If you have a lot of energy here, you can be very nervous, anxious, fearful, sad. It's very easy to feel those things. It's just a physiological thing. So best way is make your exhale longer than your inhale and put your attention in your lower belly and slowly pull your lower belly in as you exhale. And over time, you will change your body way of breathing. And you'll also, my experience, become very aware without trying to when you get emotional or thinking a lot of your energy having come up. And that's, I think, the best way to bring your energy down. This is digestion center. If your energy's down and you keep it down, no mind, you can digest your opinions, your emotions, and the situation. Then, naturally, you and the situation are in harmony, and the correct thing appears automatically. Just like the wind blows, the tree moves. The tree doesn't have any thinking about anything. So it just functions smoothly in harmony. Somebody's very angry, the wise thing might be to speak very softly, but often we also get angry. Then we make it worse. Many things like that. But if your energy's down, then you can digest what's going on much quicker. And you could see with someone like Musangsa, very strong center, very strong don't know mind. So quickly becoming clear whenever some situation appeared. One monk told me when he was a new student, he had had many mental problems, and he trusted Musangsa very much. And he would often ask him questions about how to handle many, many things. And one night he couldn't sleep at the Providence Zen Center, and he went over around 1 a.m. and started knocking on Seung Sansinim's door. And he said when Sansinim opened the door, he looked pretty much like anybody would look when they're woken up in the middle of the night and they're keeping a very difficult life schedule. You know, kind of is not happy, irritated, his face a little crinkly. But he said when Sansinim saw him, you know, Sansinim knew this person's a crazy person. His face became so soft and kind of loving. And he said, "Oh, you have a problem?" And this person told me he was so shocked at the change, he just bowed and said, "No, sir, thank you," and went to his room. So that's having a strong center and not letting your thinking or emotion control you. And it's a habit. All these things are habit. We know some people that get angry all the time. You know, that's sort of their default action to anything that's a hindrance to their thinking or things. Somebody else gets nervous all the time. These are just habits made by our thinking, the way we live, the way we keep our mind. But we can change that. Very hard to in everyday life because you're busy. But you're sitting here 8 hours a day, you can see your own habits. Because nothing's stimulating it, but it's appearing anyway, you know. Somebody told me this story about 2 monks in Japan. And one monk was very correct, you know, and the Japanese sort of, their approach to Zen is very samurai, you know, don't move, 5 hours, don't move, you know. And the other one was always falling asleep. And so they had opinions about each other, of course. And the Zen master one day called the one who was always falling asleep and called him in and said, "Look at your brother. He always makes an effort to stay clear and stay awake. What about you? Why aren't you trying harder? You must be like him and try harder." And so he's like, "Okay, I'll try." And then he called the other one in and said, "Look at you. You're arrogant, always sitting up straight and thinking how great you are. Where there, your brother, he's always in samadhi. He's not thinking anything at all. Why are you always holding some idea?" So a good teacher will just use what's happening to hit people, okay? So we have to learn to hit ourselves. You have to see, you can see, actually you can't avoid seeing your karma if you sit here for a while. That's why people don't want to come back to retreat. It's like, you know, I'm going to go back to avoiding that. You know, I can't really be like that. So a lot of people are like, "I can't believe I want to kill myself. No, I don't want to go sit retreat anymore. I'll just go eat ice cream every day when I feel bad, you know, or make more money. If I can make more money, I'll be okay." You know. So it's great that you come to retreat. That's amazing. Because there's this lovely little structure, and whatever karma we have appears within it. And since you're not sharing it with everybody or splattering other people, what do they say in Ghostbusters? You're not sliming other people with your thinking and emotion because hopefully you're not talking too much. You see it yourself. And actually, you can digest it then. You just have to keep coming back to the present moment. When you're chanting and there's thinking, come back to the sound. Make the sound, hear your voice, hear other people's voices. You know you're all chanting. So as you know the chant, your mouth chants and your brain's thinking something else. So you got to slowly grab that energy and gently put it back into the chant. Just make the sound. That's already become one with the universe. That's one. Then hear your voice, hear other people's voices. That's clear. That's our original nature. So that's slowly digesting all that I'm making. And you can digest better if your energy's down and you keep a don't-know mind. Okay? So use your breath to help bring your energy down. And change your breathing habit. And it's very good also because basically as you breathe deeper in your lungs, all the physiological stuff that helps you be more calm happens by itself.
You mentioned the Diamond Sutra before. In one chapter, Buddha said to Subhuti, his disciple, that cherishing on something like saving all sentient beings from suffering means partaking in delusions like ego, separate individuality, etc. And my question is, what's then the real meaning behind our first great vow, when we vow to save all sentient beings from suffering?
What delusions are you taking part in?
I am here.
You're here. Yeah, that's a delusion too. Don't forget this point. Okay. There's two kinds of Zen sickness. One is falling into emptiness. People who become attached, oh, everything's empty. We have a koan about that, the cigarette man. You know, everything's Buddha nature, so I can do what I want. That is very dangerous mind. The second is bodhisattva sickness, where you make I am saving others. So I go out and I drink with my friends because I'm going to save them. That's also very tricky, easy to abuse. So actually, for you, the best thing is don't think about that at all. Don't get attached to that kind of speech. You know, all this speech is medicine for somebody, but it might not be for me right now. I mean, you've got a human body, so already you have the delusion of life and death. So make good use of it. We got a body because we wanted one. We have craving of some sort, and boom, we get a body. One of the monks was very funny. He would always say, and then when we grow up, we want another body. And then the two of us want to make a third one. And when that one grows up, we want it to make a fourth one because I want grandchildren. You like your grandchildren, right? Your grandchild. Grandchildren are fun because as soon as they act bad, you give them back to their mother or father. So it's kind of fun, you know. So that's how we keep making more, you know. So you're already participating in the delusions of the world. Yeah. First become clear. Yeah. Then otherwise it becomes like the blind leading the blind. You know. I'm going to save my friends. I'm going to go out and do all this stuff with them that they like to do. If you have a very clear direction and a strong center, you can do that. Buddha called that identity action. We call it together action. Musangsa didn't need to live with us. He destroyed his body because he wanted to help us. That was the way I took it, you know. He just lived with everybody. And that's hard. But on the other hand, if you don't live with others, very hard to see your karma. I mean, you can have a family. That'll show you a lot if you're practicing. That'll show you your karma. You can live in a temple. or even just come to retreat, you're living with others, you can see your karma. If you don't see your karma, then how can you put it down and become clear? He never wanted, Musangsa never wanted any of his students to do longer than a 100-day solo retreat, because he felt that most people, if they stay by themselves a long time, even if they're strong practitioners, it just makes their karma stronger because they don't see, oh, that's my karma. So by living together, it can be unpleasant sometimes, but you can see your mind. Now, at the bottom of the hill here, when we first were here, before any of these buildings were built, there was a container box I lived in. There were two little container boxes where the two Korean men who were running the building project lived. And there was a sort of makeshift little building at the bottom of the hill where the workers lived in. And after they left, we still had that building, and I think we used it for storage. And one time, many years ago, when Tom Walsonim was here before he went to Wagesa, I think the Bolsonims must have talked with you and said they wanted a gift shop. So he came and told me, and right away, inside, I became angry, because I thought about below some of the big temples in Korea, there's villages where they sell moktaks and beads and stuff like that. And then there's eating places, and then there's places where they cook meat, and then there's drinking places, and it's a whole party town right below the temple. And we had opened this building, only this building. And the container box where I lived turned into the kitchen. And I thought, oh no, if we start this, then it's going to kill the practice energy here. And so I was really angry. And then I thought to myself, I don't know. You know, I'm sort of sick. I've lived 45 years in these Zen centers and temples, so I'm sort of sick of my own opinion. And so I thought, who knows? And then I told them, yeah, tell them it's okay. And then they got all excited. I think it was before you guys maybe came, some of you. And they went up to Seoul and they bought like a display case, and they bought all kinds of beads and incense and everything. And they got one of these hot pads you can sit on, and a pot to make hot water. Coffee at that time in Korea was pretty crummy. It was the 3-in-1 in the bag, you know. It wasn't very good. And tea, and you know. So they had a great time hanging out there for about a year, and people walking by would come in and they talk, and tell them about the temple and talk about who knows what. And I think, and I'd visit sometimes and hang out, even though they didn't speak English and I don't speak Korean, but you know, makes actually relationships better often. And you know how to drink, you know, everybody knows how to drink, and smile, and you know, throw out a few words of English or Korean, and everybody's happy. And I think I was the only person who ever bought anything there. Once in a while I'd go down and I'd buy incense to give to somebody, and after a year they got bored, and that was that. Where if I had said no, they would have been upset and probably thought, oh, Musangsa is not fun, and Joe Shill is like, he's got all these opinions and he just wants to control everything, and you know. So bring your energy down and relax. And you don't have to worry about getting involved in too much delusion, except what you're already creating. So don't worry about it. Worry about it when you go back to regular society. But if your direction's clear, it's no problem. So Musangsa also, you know, he gave us so much good material, both in the sense of practices to do, ways to organize a community, practicing community, and teachings that help. And one of the things he used to say is 3 kinds of Zen students: low class, middle class, high class. Low class, we say, are people who cannot control myself. So they live in a group, then maybe they don't want to wake up and bow, but everybody's waking up and bowing. And if they don't, the Ipsum later will say what's going on. You know, in the beginning, Musangsa had the housemaster throw water on people to make them get up. That was before I came. He was quite serious, and then he saw he could only push it so far with Americans, so he backed off a little bit. Also, the first retreats were 24 hours, one day, 24 hours, and that soon changed. Anyway, there were many, the history is interesting, and how he evolved things so that it was difficult, but people would try, and you could if you tried. Also, and it fit everyday life. So I got sidetracked there for a minute. Let me climb back. Yeah, I forget what I was talking about. Oh, low class. Got it. So if you stay in the temple, slowly, you have to put down your opinion to follow the schedule. So slowly that goes inside you and you become stronger. You can follow the schedule without a great big fight. In the beginning, you wouldn't do it without other people, but later you can do it. Then you become, we say, middle class, which means you can go off for a solo retreat, set up a schedule, and do it. That's also like a lay person who lives alone, has a job. They can, you know, if they aren't able to do this, they'll have a problem, but they can get up, they can eat, they can go to work, they can, you know, eat decently and have some reasonable sleep, and they can do their life even though they're alone, you know, without creating all kinds of havoc around them or problems. And there's people who can't, but they're trying to live that way. But when they live with other people, it's very annoying. That's a middle class. High class is you can go into any situation and keep clear. Your direction's clear, your tri-mind's clear, and you have no problem, or at least you can handle all the different karma of the people around you. Yeah. So, you know, don't jump ahead of yourself there. You know. If you can deal with the situation in the temple, then you'll be better at dealing with everyday life too, when the time comes. You know? Sometimes people come for 3 months and they want to talk a little bit about they're going back to their daily life, but we usually say, last week of retreat, don't think about it now. It's not going to help you. Nothing I plan, I ever did this way I expected after a retreat. So you probably will have a mind habit that does that, but it's just a fantasy, you know. Better bring my attention back just now, just now, just now, just now. Then you'll become more clear, and then when it's time to go into a regular social situation, you'll be clear. And in the situation, you'll be able to make decisions as situations appear better. Yeah. So if your center's strong, you can do any kind of together action with people and not be moved. I was sent to one Zen center to be abbot about 30 some years ago, and Sansanim sent me there because it was a mess. And people weren't going to practice, some people weren't paying to live there. It was really amazing. I remember thinking, this is the worst Zen center I ever lived in. And so I did a few things. One is I just always went to practice, and I did the food shopping and tried to get people to eat together. And I cleaned up all the finances and worked on the people who weren't really meeting their obligations. And then I tried to connect with each individual. There was one woman who liked gardening, so I'd go out and garden with her. There was one woman who I really got to have some affection for. She was crazy, and she'd just come from a mental hospital, but she wasn't 100% crazy. And so I spent time listening to her, and I started to see she makes sense underneath all the stuff. And some interesting things happened with her. I remember one time we were talking and she told me, I stopped my medication. And she was taking medication for schizophrenia. It wasn't just some light, I'm depressed thing. I was like, really? Did you tell your doctor? She said, no. And I said, well, you better tell your doctor. And she said, he's on vacation for 4 weeks. And I said, why'd you stop your medication? And she went, you know, back here, it just doesn't feel good all the time. And I had the feeling like, she's probably right. You know, it's probably doing something to your brain stem to reduce all the crazy thinking, which kind of turns you a little bit into a zombie, but on the other hand, you're not so crazy. So I told her, okay, well, here's the deal. You can stay here like this, but you have to stop going around at night slamming doors. That was one thing she used to do, you know, because it wakes other people up. So she's like, okay. So anyway, 2 weeks she's pretty good, and one night around midnight, I hear some doors being slammed on the Abbott, so I have to go out there. And I said, well, what are you doing? Nothing. I said, yes, you are. You're slamming doors. I told you you can't stay here if you do that. And she's just like this. And I said, I'm going to send you to your mother's house if you keep doing that. She didn't do it anymore. You have to know what really gets people. She didn't want to be sent home to her mother. So I had that in the back of my head as the last hook was, you know. And that was sufficient motivation to get her to stop doing that, you know. And within 6 months or so, the people who weren't into really doing the thing moved out, and other people moved in. And I remember within a year thinking, this is the best Zen center I ever lived in. So if you can do that one day, you can help a lot of people. Yeah, so we're already all engaged in the delusions of desire, anger, and ignorance just by having a human body. So you already are saving others. If you can be not hindered by them, then you're doing the Bodhisattva way. That's right. Buddha did too. You know, he lived with everybody. He just became incredibly clear and wise and compassionate. This is an awful small clock. Good. Any more questions? Anyway, I think you're very wise and fortunate to come here for retreat because it's quiet in a moment. And you're sitting, and the only noise, most of the noise, is inside you. And if you don't learn to deal with that, this world will control you, and your habits will control you. If you learn to deal with all this inside stuff, then you can become free, and you can use what appears to help others. That's a real treasure. I'd say I spent my first 8 years or so trying to survive, and after that it became more interesting. But I think you guys are all quicker than me, so you know, you get a handle on yourself more quickly.
First of all, do you have any advice for taking practice once the retreat's finished and maintaining strong practice? And the second one was I would like to know a little bit more about why it's so difficult and you can't see your karma when you practice solo or solo for too long.
Aha. Okay, first one was, do I have any advice about taking your practice back to your regular life and how to keep it strong? The best way is pay attention to right now. Right now. Because it's like this, you go to a gym and you lift weights and you don't notice any change But you do it the next day, you do it the next day, you do it next day, and then a couple months later or something, you have to lift something, you can. Same as that. You practice paying attention just now, just now, just now, and you automatically get better at doing that without even being aware of it. And then when you're in everyday life and that happens, you're like, whoa. And you'll have some experience of that, maybe not during a retreat, later. You know, I was doing this retreat, it was the winter, and you know, I was pretty messed up inside, but I really trusted practicing, and I was very grateful for the structure of the retreat. I was together with some others, but we were having no interaction other than doing the same thing together. And part of our work period job, 1 hour every day, was cutting wood, because the furnace of the big Zen center, we had changed from an oil furnace to a wood furnace. Later we changed it back to oil. That's a whole nother story. But in any case, we go out in the woods, some of us, cut down some trees and cut them up and then put them in a truck and drive it and dump it, and the next day maybe start chopping it. So anyway, there was a half-hour break after work period until we started sitting. And although there was snow on the ground and it was cold, it was sunny. So I took the break and just sat there on the ground, leaning against the building, feeling relaxed a little bit. And there had been a chipmunk, this little animal, that had somehow gotten into the pile of wood and gotten crushed maybe a few days before. And when we dumped the wood, its frozen, flattened body was on the ground. And Musangsa, who was the teacher, as he and we were doing the work together, as he walked by, he pointed to it and said to me, "Where's its master now?" And I immediately went, because that's exactly what it looked like. And I could see he was happy, and I thought, one part of my brain is a little clear. You know? I'm a little bit clear. So just, if you want to have a clear life when you go back, be clear now. In fact, don't worry about be clear. Just try to pay attention this moment. You know, look, the floor's yellow, right? 3 months of the floor's yellow. Something else is going to appear in your head. I hate yellow. You know, something. It's a little dirty over there. Oh, look, there is, you know, I did notice this before yeah. There's a little thing here, and okay, now it's not there. You know, stuff like that appears. So really, the best way to help your future is pay attention now. Second question about not seeing your karma on solo retreat. You see some karma, but some karma you don't see. And especially if you're strong, then you really don't see your karma, because you think, I'm really clear. I mean, Saddam Hussein had a strong center. Is that a guy that you would take as an image of compassion and wisdom? I don't think so. But his center was strong. You know, so strong center is not enough. Yeah, so don't worry, you're not on a solo retreat. You're going to run into all of us all day long, okay? When you want to do a solo retreat, then that time talk to a teacher beforehand. Yeah. Same thing, before you go home, then it's a good time to sit down and talk. But while you're here, much better to throw all that away. Even if it keeps coming up, that's okay, don't fight with yourself. But return to just now, return to just now. Same as going like this. Then it just happens by itself. It happened by itself, you know, because I was trying to do a mantra and follow the schedule. So, that's enough. That's probably more than enough. So, soon, we do whatever's next. Okay, so all we have to do is keep it on the mind and do it. Moment to moment, do it. And it will take care of itself, you know. So this is a great, great thing. I can't think of anything better to be doing in the world, because if my mind's not clear, it doesn't matter what happens in the rest of the world. And if my mind's clear, even as Sung San once said to me, the world turns upside down, you can find your way. You can find the helpful way, the clear way at that moment. So let's just do it. And if Sung Sanim, you'll tell us what's next.
Next.